Hello, welcome to Mornings at the Allotment. It's June 21st, Midsummer, and I figured this is the perfect day to give you a tour of the allotment. We finally had some thunderstorms with rain last night, so the heat wave we've been having, temperatures up to 33, 34 degrees Celsius, is finally over for now. We're expecting highs just below 30, so that's already really an improvement. I haven't been able to spend too much time at the allotment. Sometimes I came down in the mornings and then left at 10 when it got unbearable. A couple of days I managed to get in 4 hours, but that was really the most I could do. And most of that time was spent watering. Planting wood really had to go in the ground. And as you can see, I still have a lot that isn't planted yet, as well as some of the brassicas that are still at home. So now that the temperatures are supposed to be more tolerable, that's going to be my plan for this coming week. But first, let me show you the garden. One of my favorite parts of the garden right now is the tomato bed, the covered tomato bed. These are growing really well, setting flowers, most of them. I've even spotted a tomato or two on some. In the back here, we still have the broad beans. I harvested the first batch, left the rest on for another couple of days, but we do need the space, so they need to come out. And these are the ones that we planted before the winter. I'm not exactly sure when, and they did really well as far as aphids are concerned. One of the plants has them, but the rest is completely clean. Behind the tomato bed is where I put the butternut. They got some new compost, but are in the same space that I had them last year. And if you remember the video where I did the weeding, you'll see that the purslane has covered the ground very well. There is still some grass coming up, which I'm going to weed out by hand, and then I'm probably going to chop the purslane before it goes to flower and just leave it as mulch. We also have some sweet potatoes growing in here, and I just make sure that they're not shaded by the purslane or by any other weeds. Then behind the greenhouse we have the uchikikuri and some climbing beans. And I've spotted the first female flower on this larger plant, so it looks like it's ready to get going. And the same goes for these two. Look at that gorgeous flower though. This is a spot I don't usually show you, our compost piles, but this was just too funny. I have no idea what it is. I assume it's some kind of winter squash. But since we have all kinds growing together, and I don't want to grow them and then find out after the fact that they're cross-pollinated, I think I'm just going to tear them out and use them as mulch, or just leave them here on the compost pile. And if we go just a bit further, you can see that we've got the first red raspberries, and lots of them too. But I just tried one. They get afternoon sun. I just tried one. It wasn't tasty at all. When we harvest them in the afternoons, they're absolutely brilliant. Now in the greenhouse, I've begun harvesting the kohlrabi because I needed to make space for what is probably the largest of my melon plants. This is a Minnesota Midget, and it really didn't do well at all. It did have quite long roots that came out the bottom of the pot it was in, and it was in a large pot, and it's already trying to make flowers. I think I should probably take them off because it just doesn't have enough leaves to support flowers. Yeah, so I'll do that later. The hanging baskets with the strawberries. They're not producing too well in here, but I did put them in here because they're a different type of strawberry than what we have outside. and I'm growing them in here for their runners, for more plants. Underneath we have some cucumbers. This one is slowly beginning to get going, finally. It took a while. And some beetroot here. And back here I have 2 teeny tiny sugar baby watermelons. Yeah, I know. They're not doing any better either, sadly. So, sorry Jane, I won't be much help for the UK Europe team, I think. The sugar snap peas, mange tout, are going over. They need to be watered several times a day in here because it's just so hot. We have over 40 degrees in here, even with the windows and the door open. What's doing really well in those temperatures though is my pepper plants, or rather they're all chili peppers, hot peppers. And on one of the cayenne here, we even have our first fruit. Yeah. And something has been eating my habaneros. If you have any idea what that looks like, let me know. I haven't found any slugs or caterpillars or anything else, so I really have no idea what this could be. Yeah, so the newest structure I put in just 2 days ago. I had a couple of cucumbers left, didn't know where to put them. And this side of the greenhouse is in full sun in the morning, and then by about 2 it gets a bit of shade during the hottest time of the day from the greenhouse. And in the past we've had problems with cucumbers that got bitter from too much stress, too little watering, but I really can't come down here more than once or maybe twice a day to give them water continuously. And here the soil is actually just regular soil all the way down below the pathway as well, and into the greenhouse. So it's not like they only have this narrow strip of soil, they have all the soil they need to put their roots down. And some of them are still very tiny. I had to resow them because they didn't come up. And this one I'm really liking the looks of. It's doing really well. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Now as for my potatoes, some of those aren't looking too great. Some of them just have heat damage because it was just too dry and I couldn't keep them moist enough. And on 2 pots I think I spotted some blight, which is really annoying considering they're brand new buckets and brand new bought in compost. So yeah, but I'll have a closer look at those later today and then take out the ones with what I think might be blight, and probably just see if I can get a harvest from them and throw the rest in the trash. The herbs are coming along really well. The lavender is starting to flower. The sorrel has gone over, but if I cut that back it will come again if last year is anything to go by. Then we have the tarragon here in the front that really needs to be harvested because we have some rosemary hiding behind it that isn't getting enough light at the moment. So yeah, the tarragon needs to be cut back. And then of course there's the clary sage here, which is usually teeming with bees, as you can see. Don't know what these are called in English. I'll look it up for you. And then down here we have some mint in a pot, and there's actually some root coming out the bottom, so I really need to get that up and repot it somewhere else in a bigger pot and not put it directly in the soil. And oregano and some, let me see, winter savory back here. And down here in flower, and usually it looks better, but the sorrel came down on top of it in the rain last night, so I need to really get the sorrel out, is some burnet, which I learned on Facebook a couple of days ago. I was calling it Pimpernel because it's Pimpernelle in German, but no, in English it's burnet. Yeah, and then here we have the early mange 2 that I had here in the pots that did quite well, but now they just don't have enough of a water reservoir for this heat. So I'll see whether they continue to produce new blossoms on the top here now that it's not so hot anymore, and if not, I'll just take them out and put something else in there. Daylilies. I love this color. Now we have the blue iris early in the spring, and now we have these gorgeous orange daylilies. So the back part of the garden is quite a bit of a weedy mess, and I'm not going to show you all the details because it's just too embarrassing. But there are a couple of things that I've planted here already that I want to show you in some detail. This right here is last year's Cavallonero that had been flowering and is still flowering, as I can see. I'm going to take those off in a minute because it started regrowing from the bottom. So what I do now is I'm just taking off all the flowering shoots and hoping that it'll stop flowering and just start regrowing again. And here on the cucumber trellis, the clothes horse, we've got 3, these are called Tanya, growing up and looking good now. They didn't start off too well. And then on the other side we have 3 Market More. And way too many weeds. In between the weeds there's also some dill, so I really need to get these weeds out, but it was just too hot to do much weeding in the past 10 days to 2 weeks. This right here, these are my favorite roses on the plot, and they go up all the way to this arch, and we're trying to train them over the arch that goes over the main pathway. But in reality, they're not in the most prominent spot here. They just cover our compost pile. So at least from the outside, you see the roses and not the compost pile, because it is right by the main path. And I thought I had missed filming the elderflower for you. We have a red elder called Black Beauty, or black elder. Is it black elder? You'll let me know. Yeah, it's finally growing. It didn't do much last year. Putting on new growth here as well, and I hope to harvest these before the birds get to them. Now, as I said, these beds really need weeding, but I do have some Brassicas growing in there from last year that didn't want to do anything before the winter, and now they're coming. So who's to complain? And I popped in a random wild tomato here. Then, more Brassicas. And then back there, those are the ones that I did plant this year, some red cabbage mainly. And some salad in between. The garlic in the back and some onions that need harvesting in the front. So yeah, that bed really needs some work. And just because it's so beautiful, a random lettuce. Also from last year. It just didn't do anything in the fall, and now it's coming. Some snapdragons beginning to bloom in the back, next to the fruit bushes. Some dwarf French beans, I think. Well, some type of bush variety bean. And the garlic that I was able to harvest about 500 grams of scapes off of yesterday that are now chopped up and frozen. So if you have got any ideas how long I need to wait to see whether it's ready to harvest, do let me know in the comments. I found some rust on some of them, so those will have to come out, and then we'll see. I think it's a job that will be done soon. And then once these are out, and these sad looking broad beans as well, these are the ones that we planted in the spring, and they're just so infested by aphids that even the broad beans that they do have don't look like they'll come to much. Here, not looking good. So yeah, in future I will be planting them all in the fall. and not in the spring. Anyway, as soon as the garlic and the broad beans and the onions that are about ready to come out as well come out, I'm going to pull some of the strawberries and the runners that we have up into these beds and basically enlarge our fruit bed, because we also have cuttings from the other fruit bushes in the back that need more space, and it's just a pain to harvest back there because everything is so close together. Yeah, so change of plans there. This was going to be my Brassica bed, but yeah, I need it for the fruit, so what we're doing is we're just making a new bed here. And I wanted to just cover in cardboard and compost, but my partner decided that he wanted to try just digging up some of the grass as well and doing it this way. All right, the cold frame has one more Minnesota Midget in it and one more sugar baby watermelon all the way in the back. And I've kept the lids on over the sugar baby just to protect it a bit. Yeah, the kohlrabi's coming along nicely, as is the cabbage and some of the beetroot as well back there. These are coming along well. Another weedy bed, but this is the one we're actually harvesting beetroot from already at the moment. Let's see if I can show you down here. Yeah. Another bed that really needs clearing up is this one behind the cold frame. So the strawberries will be transplanted to the new fruit bed, to the fruit bed extension. And then, yeah, these cabbages are heading up well, and also the kohlrabi is doing pretty well back there. And these mange tout are actually doing really, really well. And of course they don't have the stress of too little water because they're sitting directly in the ground. So for them it's fine if I just water them once a day or even every other day. And for all those of you who found my channel through my tomato planting video, look at some of these. And they are different varieties, so some of them don't grow as tall. And remember, some of these didn't have any root. Now they're really doing well, almost all of them. Putting on flowers. I need to see if I can find some with fruit on them already. I've seen a couple of small tomatoes. My outdoor peppers haven't done quite as well. We've got them ranging in size anywhere from this to this. They just got too much cold. I planted them too early. I knew I was doing it, and I have a couple of spares. So I figured I'll just put in the spares, but now I haven't had the time. So that's another task for this upcoming week. Let me just see. This one did well and is putting on flowers. So yeah, all is not lost. Another weedy but more successful bed is this one, where we have our first aubergine. This is a variety called Black Beauty. And also on this zucchini called Zuboda, I found the first fruit. Yeah. And the kohlrabi that were in there before I planted the rest are getting ready to come out. Yeah, excuse me walking through that picture there. Here's one that's looking really good, and that one is going to be harvested soon. So this is the bed that had my artichoke plants, but they were too young and their root system was too small, so they didn't survive the very cold winter we had. So I put in 2 new artichokes. They're still very tiny. They won't grow all that much this year. And on the sides I put some patty pan pâtisson, and I just saw here we also have the first one growing here. Here we have some random ground cherries in pots that are growing nicely. And yeah, I really hate cutting back the tomatoes, so I just took some of what I had to cut off and stuck it in the soil to see if it would grow. And another part of my experiment, of course, it rooted and they're looking great. They will be a bit behind, but I figured they're extra plants for free, so what's not to like? And finally, in this raised bed, my first ever parsnips. Since we did have quite a bit of slug damage there and many of them never even germinated, we sowed another 2 rows. We finished this row here. We've sowed more in this row with radishes in between, so the radishes are what you're seeing now. And then we finished this row as well. So we'll see what happens here over time. I hope it germinates. Got a good soaking last night, and we did drills and soaked those before we planted them, so we hope that this will work. So yeah, here I am in my current happy place. I'm going to be spending a bit of time taking out side shoots from these tomatoes because they're growing like weeds, most of them. And for some of the plants, I'm going to put up a second string, but 2 is the absolute maximum that I'm allowing them. Where I have space, I can do that. And I know how some of them grow, the ones with the smaller leaves, for example. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if it was a bit erratic today, different from my usual plot tours, but it's getting harder and harder to walk everywhere. So I can't just walk you through the garden anymore. Trying to show you the most interesting parts. If there's anything else you'd like to see that you remember from other videos, just leave a comment and I'll put it in my July tour, or maybe do an individual video on it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my videos, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye.